Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Hey everybody, how's it going? You're listening to The Command Zone. I'm your host, Jimmy Wong.
How's it? It's Josh Lee Kwai.
And today we're going to be talking about some card names.
And flavor text.
It's more exciting than it sounds, don't worry. We will get into it very shortly. But first, we have some winners to announce, but not right now.
First, we have to announce when we're going to announce the winners.
That's right. Last week, we announced that we were giving away a copy of Red Rising from Del Rey Spectra. It's the second book.
It's the first book.
I'm sorry. We messed this up last week, too.
The second one is Golden Sun. We're actually giving away 10 copies.
Yeah, lots of winners.
Yeah, well, Del Rey's actually giving away 10 copies. We're not. So thank you, Del Rey. If you did enter the contest, then just wait till the end of the episode before the end step, and we will be announcing the winners.
Please don't skip, because this is a good episode.
Actually, our last episode with James, who is our guest again, is one of our more popular episodes ever.
Really?
Yeah, it was episode 7.
Congrats,
wonderful
James.
to hear.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, James is on the show. James
up,
Pianka, everybody. Round of applause.
Hello.
Also cheering, not just applause.
Yeah.
That was,
We want tons of applause.
A couple things before we get started. The Deck Doctor submissions. We didn't think of this before, or I didn't think of this before, but I'm going to request, because we're still accepting submissions. People keep asking.
Yep.
Yes, you can keep sending them. We will be choosing them, like we said, intermittently. But please put Deck Doctors in the subject line of the email when you send it, because we're starting to get so many emails that it's hard to keep track of everything, which wasn't a problem for us in the past, but it's becoming an issue.
But don't worry, we're not going to miss your email if you've sent it before. Just this will help us from here on out, on top of all that.
Exactly. And we have missed some emails from people that weren't emailing in for the Deck Doctors thing, I think, because we've literally got like 1,000 submissions for the Deck Doctors. So
pretty healthy.
Yeah. And so it's kind of gotten... It took us a little while to get our workflow as far as like keeping everything separate and whatever. It'll just help us if you put Deck Doctors in the subject line. And also, I just want to apologize to anybody who sent us an email in the last like 6 weeks or so that wasn't about that. That was just normal like email to us.
Yep.
We may have not responded, and for that I apologize. It's just
because we hate you.
I feel really bad because we've normally been responding to every single email that comes in, but there's just, with the Deck Doctors, it's been really hard. I'd also say, like, a lot of people are sending in their Deck Doctors submissions, and they're saying things like, even if you don't pick it for the show, I'd love to hear what you guys think. And I would love to, but we literally have 1,000, probably maybe more. It's just not probably going to be possible for us to like correspond with each person that's sending in a deck. So we apologize when we're not responding to all the Deck Doctors. When we are looking at them, you do have a chance to be chosen. You could win a Pack of the Dark or whatever else we decide to give away. Anyway, there we go.
Apologies aside, we look forward to Deck Doctoring some of those decks, but not all of them.
We did recently record a second Deck Doctors episode, so you can look forward to that.
There's a winner in the wings.
All right, let's move on to card names and flavor text. So once again, we have James Pianka here. He's at James Pianka on Twitter. He was on episode 7 of this show. That is 07, so our 7th show ever.
That was almost a year ago now, James.
It was, and I did not realize you guys were so young at that point.
We were babies. We didn't tell you because we were like, yeah, we've been around the block. We know what's up.
I haven't been called young in a very long time. It feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good.
Can I see your ID, Josh? You're like, no.
That only ever happens when I'm with you in Vegas, Jimmy.
That's true. I get ID'd so fast in that city. It's insane.
I would immediately ID you.
Yeah.
I would call security and eject you from the premises.
He literally played like a 16 or 17-year-old like last year on a show. So
it was good casting.
Age appropriate.
So James writes flavor text and card names for Magic. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that job is? I know we've covered it before, but it's been a while. So
yeah, absolutely. So I'm a member of what's called the Creative Text Team, which receives a fair amount of information about what the cards are going to look like and what they will do. Far before the set even gets announced. And so we're deep in the development process, and we look at the mechanics of the card. We look at the artist, whatever the most recent proof the artist has turned in for the art, and we read all of the art direction that they received, and we get occasional notes about what kind of tone they want from us in our writing, and then we provide multiple submissions for the name of the card, and then multiple pieces of flavor text. So 3 names and 2 quotes per card, assuming there is room for a quote at all. Sometimes it's just the names,
or even there's enough room for the name.
Yeah, I mean, and then Wizards will go back through and they'll look at the pool of submissions they got for all of those cards, and they will select 1 name and 1 quote and pay us accordingly.
So you get paid per name or quote chosen?
Right, per unit of writing. So if you get both the name and the quote on the card, you get paid twice.
Oh, very nice. Now, how many sets have you worked on to this date?
I have Magic Origins is my second set to see print. First being Khans of Tarkir a year ago, and then I have 3 more unannounced sets in the machinery.
Oh,
so
very
that's
cool.
how far in the future you guys are working as 3, 4 like sets down the road.
I've completed writing for 2 of those sets. The third one is about to start. That window opens shortly.
That's exciting. Well, we know that R&D develops sets 2 years in advance, so that would make sense that they have all the relevant information for that stuff way in advance as well.
Yeah, they might do the mechanics 2 years in advance, but our stuff is more like a year.
Right.
Because they do have some artwork. Does every card have artwork at that point, or is it pretty
No.
sparse?
It might get as sparse as minimal as just a graphite sketch that the artist had thrown in.
Right.
And if there's nothing, there's a stock image of Martha Stewart.
Oh, you told us this last time.
It's actually online. If you Google it, you can find it. The Mothership put out an article that details quite a bit of this a while ago, which allows me to speak about this, which is great. And they have they post the image in there. It's nice. It's just this goofy image. It's actually really frustrating because I want to see the art. I want to know what I'm writing about.
But it helps you, of course.
Yeah. I hope Martha doesn't throw you off too. You're writing something and you see Martha's picture and you're like, maybe I should name it the mother of.
I think it does a little bit. Just in the opportunity cost. Like if there was something there, I might vibe with it, But if there's not, I'm just gonna have to like imagine what it could be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how did you go about getting started, in this gig?
Well, I do. I identify as a narrative designer to the game industry at large. So I'm not just working on Magic. Magic is the largest and most visible game title that I've contributed to, and I got it by just sort of being a writer first. I was publishing on a place called gatheringmagic.com. And there's actually you'd be surprised how many creative text writers are lurking on that staff. I didn't know this. I had an essay that I wanted to get published and I was shopping it around and they were the ones who bit. And just the connections I made there, particularly on Twitter, we all got in touch and got it going. And eventually, one of them reached out to me and we started talking about this and I was like, yes, of course, I would love to do that. Like, it's part of the reason I'm in this gig. I'm in this industry doing that. And, he connected me to the person at Wizards that I was supposed to speak to. And, they administered the test and off I went.
That's cool. Can you give the listeners some names of cards that you named or had flavor text for in cons?
In cons?
Yeah.
Sure. So my favorite is Empty the Pits because it's super metal.
Very
I
nice.
was really sad that it didn't get the standard competitive scene
it's got
traction.
EDH playability. Brian David Marshall plays it in his EDH deck, so you've got that.
We got that. I tried it in our cube at home, and it's just one black mana symbol too much.
Yeah,
It's too hefty. So Empty the Pits is in there. I got the flavor quote on Woodland Foothills, Clever Impersonator. I think my favorite, my best writing in the set is the flavor quote on either Briber's Purse or Rite of the Serpent, which are commons and uncommons. Are not prominent cards, but I
played Ride of the Serpent a lot in Limited.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that quote a lot. I got Seeker of the Ways quote.
Oh, that's a good one. That's not competitive.
Yeah, that still sees play.
That's a real card. That's great.
Yeah.
Khans of Tarkir was a great set for me.
That's
awesome.
Woodland Foothills, of course. That's the big one.
I actually have an interesting story about that. This is interesting. So I submitted
Wooded Foothills, by the way, guys.
Wooded, excuse
Come on,
me.
Jeez,
Yeah,
gosh. I was like, just my glasses.
I'm getting in
Filthy
trouble.
casual.
I love that term.
Yeah, it's great. So I submitted my quote for that, which is where dragon's breath once burned, their bones now freeze. And it's not doing anything crazy. It's not breaking down any walls, but it fits in the amount of space that was allotted, and it does like a clever little trick.
Yeah, little twist.
Little twist in the prose. And so if you look at the rest of the cycle of the Khans fetch lands, they all follow that convention.
Yeah, it's like you set the formula, and then they
So I will go on record as having inspired that cycle.
That's a good cycle since those are going to be used forever. Yeah. For instance, Polluted Delta says where dragons once prevailed, their bones now sink.
Right.
James, you're a rock star, man. I didn't realize that.
Well, I mean, they didn't pay me for the rest of the cycle, and I didn't. And
You didn't write the other ones.
I didn't write the
Yeah,
rest
yeah.
of them. And one of the other perks we get, this is wonderful, is we get a courtesy foil copy of every card that we.
Oh,
finish
right.
into.
Yeah,
I did
you
not
mentioned
get
this.
a playset of. I did not get a
Dang
foil
it.
cycle of the fetch
So
lands. I
close.
just got my foothills. I was super bummed, but it's fine.
Hey, that's all right. Anyway,
So let's talk about Origins here. We know Origins is pretty story heavy. It's unique. It's the last core set. It's also trying to tell, what we've posited the theory that it's probably trying to set up for the movie a little bit. And so were you did they let you know the backstories? Like we've just recently seen the release of all the backstories on Uncharted Realms of each of the Planeswalkers.
Right.
Did they have that all done? Was that stuff you were looking at? Like
We did not have them in such a long, narrativized,
Right.
form like that. We didn't have full short stories, but we had maybe a 2-page Word document for each Planeswalker, kind of walking us through with a couple little thumbnails of sample
Right.
art.
I'm guessing that's what the creative writers for the stories probably got something similar to that to base their stories off of as well.
right.
So for Jace, it would just say poor,
Raised here.
bullied.
it was more than that. It was like 2 pages of writing for each one.
Gotcha.
But
But
it
not
was
prose. Is
no,
it more
it-
like
it-
outline?
it was prose, but it wasn't.
Wasn't fleshed out with
It wasn't.
the
It wasn't a
wind
piece
set.
of fiction.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just like then Jace, then this happens to Jace, and,
Right.
and then this happens, and
Right.
it was pretty straightforward. We sort of knew what we were doing, and the particulars of it kind of came to light once we saw the cards themselves and we saw how they were each being depicted.
Did they give you any direction? Because again, the set's also called Magic Origins, and part of what it's trying to accomplish is sort of throwbacks to old Magic cards or nostalgic, cards from the past. Did they talk to you about that at all?
Not really. No, that was just sort of in the machinery, and we
cool.
saw it, but it wasn't relevant to us in our task, so we didn't get that instruction.
I mean, it's not relevant in the naming and the flavor text. You don't think?
You're sort of expected to know when something is going to be a throwback Magic. So, for
So it
instance,
was assumed almost that you would know that. They didn't specifically say make sure you try and reference old cards. They just
no, we have to just be aware of when that's happening.
Interesting.
So, for instance, Conclave Naturalists. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's last name. He's a buddy of mine, fellow writer at Gathering Magic, and a member on the creative text team. His name is Ant Tressoir. I don't know.
we screw up every name we ever say.
literally
James,
every
so don't
name.
worry about it.
Yeah, he's a wonderful dude, colleague of mine, peer. We talk about game design all the time. He named that card. It was his first set, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Very cool.
He did.
Congrats.
He actually had more acceptances than me this time. I'm going to beat him next time, but he got me here.
I don't know. You've got quite a bit here, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Oh, well, thank you. He did really well himself. He named Conclave Naturalists, and that card, if you'll see when it enters the battlefield, it destroys a
Artifact or
or
enchantment,
enchantment.
yeah.
So it's a very clear reference to naturalize. They are naturalized on a body, and he sort of cleverly associated it with the main primary card, the grandfather card of that, ability, and it's sort of that's the kind of thing that creative is looking for when they go in and select from the pool. And there's no guarantee they're going to take anything that was submitted. They can just throw out our stuff all the time. Actually, Creative Origins is full of cards that retained their working title despite the submission pool.
Oh, interesting.
Or
So they
even a couple.
They just didn't like any of the submissions that came in, or nah, this still fits the best.
They change the mechanics of the card or the art of the card. Things change. Things are subject to change enormously from
Right.
the time we see them as writers to the time they see print. So often I'll see a card that'll get spoiled and I'll recognize it. I'll remember what it was and it'll look totally different. I have a couple examples that we can get into, but the most interesting one for me on mine was Demonic Pact, the one that kills you in 4 turns. That was a very different card in development.
Interesting.
And I got paid for the name Infernal Etchings.
Because they were going to use that.
They
name.
were going to go with Infernal Etchings, but I think I was really disappointed when I saw the card because I was really looking forward to it. I remember it being just this badass toolbox, mono black, mythic enchantment. I was going to run it in every black EDH deck ever. But it had been redesigned, and Infernal Etchings no longer really did it. Pact is a really key word there. It's pretty important that you,
Because she's
especially with
making
the
the deal.
flavor of the card.
you need to get that deal involved. And so,
Was the Liliana's story different at that point?
no
What did the stories pretty much stay the same as what you saw?
stories are the same. Stories are totally the same.
Very interesting. Well, let's get into some of the cards that you named for this set. Now, we're not going to talk about every single card, but I think it's just going to be fun to just go through these and just hear a little bit about it. The first one up is a card that's made quite a splash. It's Days Undoing.
Days Undoing.
If you guys don't know, this is kind of like a
Time Twister.
Time Twister, yeah. Except it ends the turn when you cast it. Now, Days Undoing, I mean, this card could see a lot of play across a lot of formats, so I hope you're pretty excited about this one.
I'm pretty excited. I fear that it won't. Because I've heard a great deal of naysaying as well. But
there will always be naysayers before prosayers, I'll say
The
that.
good thing about this card is people are going to try to use it.
Yeah.
So you'll know whether it is. There's so many cards that nobody ever tries to, and you're like, that could be good.
This card also has literally no room for flavor text. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's full on like rules text. So do you want to go through like the naming of this specific card?
Sure. I don't remember my other submissions for it. I don't remember what other lines of thought I explored, but at least for Days Undoing, the idea was that there was a sort of reversal of what had been done, and I was really vibing on that art.
Yeah, this sort of door to happy lands.
Right.
In this
It seemed
crazy world.
Yeah, it seemed like a very powerful, typically blue kind of way of turning back time, and that's what I was going for, and. Evidently, Creative agrees with me in this, but stylistically, I'm a huge fan of alliteration. I feel like, especially, like strong repeated consonants are often a great way to make something sound catchy. And when you don't have a lot of space, you have two words. Days Undoing, like those double D's in there are.
Yeah,
that's why every superhero is named something like that.
Daredevil. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, it actually ties right into the next card that we're going to talk about, Animist's Awakening.
Animist Awakening, yeah.
So it's a very similar format of a possessive word and then a thing that ends in ing. This card is going to see a ton of EDH play.
Remember
Holy
that
moly.
Kruvix list I brought in last time?
Yes, absolutely.
The last two cards, these two cards, Days Undoing and Animist Awakening are the only ones going in there.
That's great. Now, I assume, so you get to submit a few names for each of these cards, correct?
Right.
So Nissa is the Animist, right? That's a word that's been associated with her.
Right.
Did each of your submissions have a version of Nissa's name in there because this is specifically her awakening?
I think I might have even used her name directly in some of the other ones. It was very much her. She was clearly in the art. I don't remember whether we saw the art or not, but like if we didn't, she would be stipulated in the art itself, like in the description.
Right,
so
right. That's
it's
really
clearly
cool.
about her.
Yeah, definitely.
You said on the last one you didn't remember what your other submissions were. Do you often know, like, oh, that one is good? Do you, like, is it like a basketball player?
You
like,
feel
it
it
leaves
in
your fingertips and you're like, that's in.
Definitely, absolutely. You feel them in your bones, and then you see them, and then you get the email telling you what you got. And you're like, boom, it's right there. There it is. Killed it. And so those are the best. I love those. I have a couple that I just submitted into the most recent one that I would love to talk about, but I can't.
Of course not. No.
They're like, I've got a few that are just like music. They're just beautiful. And I hope I get them.
I hope you get them too.
I hope so too, so we can talk about it again. That's so very exciting. You got a Planeswalker.
I got my first Planeswalker. Kind of, though. He starts as a creature. It's not really there.
No,
it's not satisfied yet.
It's actually better, I think, because these are the first ever dual face Planeswalkers. There will never be another first ever.
Right. For sure.
So
I
to get one of them is pretty
else.
good.
I don't know who got who got Vren's Prodigy. I remember seeing that though in the pool and being like, "That's probably the one."
Yeah,
that's probably it.
So you get to see other submissions when you submit as well.
Yeah, that's actually really important because we don't want to be covering the same ground. It's important to avoid redundancy, and it's often very obvious what the card's name is going to be.
Right.
And so sometimes whoever gets there first just gets it. Like a good buddy of mine, John Dale Beatty, he writes for Star City Games. He for conflict of interest can no longer write for Magic because he.
Is at Star City.
He's at Star City
right.
and you can manipulate prices and such. And so
all of a sudden these like random commons are just $20.
Yeah.
Like,
he's like, oh, they're reprinting fetch lands. Like,
yeah,
blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he named Xenagos, God of Revels.
Right.
That was clearly going to be that god's name. There was no, it could have been God of Revelry maybe, but it was definitely, Revels is a word that is sort of almost code worded, keyworded throughout the flavor of that set. Parties on Theros are called Revels.
Right.
And that's his turf, and he's just this total bro god, and God of Revels was pretty much got to be the name. And so John got in there first. He was just the first person to claim it.
Now, I play this game called Fibbage sometimes, where you're supposed to create a fake word or a fake definition for something, and you can see sometimes what other people do. And would it be, I don't know, scummy to be you see God of Revels and you submit God of Revelry? Like, does that sort of weirdness ever happen?
That would be savvy. I would not call that scummy.
Okay.
Well, that leads me to a question about the process. So you submit how many names per card?
3 names and 2 quotes. And they're going to pick
you
one or
don't
the other.
just
Right.
necessarily submit 3 at once?
No, you can put in one and come back later. For instance, Tainted Revelry.
Mm-hmm.
I should have waited. You'll see I was the very first person. I'm often the first person out of the cards. Like I just blaze through my first draft.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's reasons to do that and not. Like I'm kind of a.
Well, like you said, being there first is very important as well.
I like to like claim the obvious stuff to make sure that no one else can get there. I also like to I want people to like retreat in shame at the quality of my work. I'm just like, I want to go in there and just like shock and awe. I don't want people to come in and like be totally demoralized. Like, oh man, how do I even compete? So
right.
it is a competition at the end of the day. We're trying to get paid. And so I'm definitely in there like lighting off fireworks. And so we're doing it. But regardless, Tainted Remedy. It's on the one hand, there is a very kind of obvious given in the vibe. Like it's going to be, it's Josu and it's Lily and they're like, she's kneeling over him in this bed and it's this like very like poignant and like kind of quiet, urgent moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that others would not have done this. I just said that there are obvious ways of doing it, but I definitely got in there first and I definitely did a take this, brother, like it'll make you better kind of thing.
Right.
I didn't get the exact wording of it, but every single submission in that pool was the same thing. We were all very
interesting.
Theme, and I got there first. I did it, but I knew that when I typed it in, that I was missing. The ball left my fingers.
Are you allowed to take it back and edit what you've submitted, or is it kind of just in once you hit submit?
It's in, but you can edit. They're all timestamped though.
Gotcha.
And so you sort of remove your timestamp if you edit it, but like I knew that it wasn't there. I knew.
Why does the time matter?
It doesn't. I don't know.
It's who gets there first.
There's an order. There's an order of it too. So like the more recent ones will rank up at the top.
Gotcha.
And so let's say if you get that first one at the bottom and you edit it at the bottom, it'll actually stay down there at the bottom. And I don't know the order in which creative reads them, but I think that's relevant. I think minds are tainted by their first exposure, and
tainted. Like I said, the actual flavor text, by the way, is drink this, comma brother, period. It will bring you rest.
Yeah, right.
So you had a very similar version to that.
I had some like sort of half baked, almost there version of that that I tried, and I think I meant to come back and fix it later, but I just like never really came around to nailing it because when I came back to do so, everyone else had trodden that turd, that.
Interesting.
It's pretty cool that there's so much strategy to that part of it because of course anyone doing this would have to know the game so well. They're probly players of the game, so they're just gamers.
Playing.
So of course there's different strategies you're trying to game that system. It's very cool.
Yeah.
We should say Jace you were responsible for the Planeswalker side, which is Jace Telepath Unbound. Is there anything that comes to mind about that name specifically?
I wanted to be very clear about what was happening. Planeswalkers have no flavor text. There's no room for kind of supporting flavor. There's, there are no buttresses here. Your wall has to stand up on its own. And so I didn't have a lot of space, and I wanted it to be really clear what was happening. And he had just broken free of his abusive subservient relationship with his mentor Alhamaret, and he's now in Ravnica, and it is clear that he's a telepath. We need to know the nature of his magic, the origin of his strength. It's important, and then we need to know like the condition. What is he like now at this stage versus other stages? Jace the Mind Sculptor is a much more developed, being at that stage in his life, and the Living Guild Pack, serves a very specific purpose in the lore while being the worst card ever.
I agree. But Living Guild Pact is very sad.
So like I wanted to show. There's also a sort of like a bravado to the art where he has that hood. He's like pulling up his hood and he's like downward. Yeah. We're looking up at him from a downward angle on these stairs, and so there's this grandeur to him and this like just this suave kind of like movie action hero kind of thing, and it's just like Unbound. So I was just going for like the kind of like teenage style thing.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Moving down, I noticed that Honored Hierarch is yours. That's a very interesting one.
I feel bad about that, by the way.
Why?
Because it's clearly a reference. This is almost like what I was saying with Conclave Naturalist. Like it's clearly in the family of Noble Hierarch.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and so I made a distinct and pointed effort to reference.
Well, why do you feel bad about that? That feels smart.
Because it's so much worse than Noble Hierarch card wise, gameplay wise.
I see. So that honoring the name, but the card isn't as strong. Feels a little wrong.
Right. I mean, that's kind of on creative.
That's not your fault.
I mean, it's the R&D made the card, creative picked the name, but like there was a clear reference there, and I wanted to make it.
Yep.
But I feel like I've participated in this big trick now in that where people are like, oh, it's like kind of like Noble Hierarch, but insultingly worse.
Right.
Well, I don't think anybody's been tricked.
No, nobody's been tricked.
Nobody thinks it's good.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of mythics on here. Starfield of Nyx, also yours?
Yeah. That's really interesting. Now, did you guys know that it would be a card specifically referencing Nyx?
Yes, yeah. It was like this card is on Theros. It's a picture of the night sky, which contains the pantheon of deities. It's clearly Nyx. Like, it was just about that.
Right. Because that feels like just a gimme, the of Nyx part of it, but the Starfield, it's like a very evocative word, so I really like that. Because you don't really see those two words together very often, Starfield.
Yeah, I remember one of my other submissions was Divine Firmament, which I would have been happy with. That's cool, but like it had to contain both. It had to be stars, like a night sky, that also contains deities. Like,
right.
You had to hit the two bit things there.
I have to tell you, James, in our last episode, we made fun of one of your card names a little bit. It's not your fault because it has more to do with the art. But Gideon's Phalanx.
What about it?
It's not a phalanx in the art.
It just looks like...
It's just dudes like running. They're not like interlocking shields. They're not like standing side by side.
Yeah, I'll take responsibility.
They don't have spears.
I'll take the blame. Yeah, it's a battle formation. I believe we were instructed to do some sort of like military dudes in a formation thing, and I didn't really think much further.
Phalanx is a very good word, though. I do like that word a lot, and I don't think anyone's going to look at this card and be like, "Whoa, hold on!" Except for us,
except for
a
couple of jerks who have their own podcast.
I mean, it's aesthetically pleasing. It is a battle formation. That's about as far as
it feels
you
like a
need to
magic
go.
word too, right? Phalanx. It's just
we had Phalanx leader,
right,
in Theros, right? In Theros. So definitely it's a word that's been used.
I don't think I misused.
I just wanted to come clean so that you don't like listen to that episode a little bit down the line and go, hey, those jerks.
No, that's fair. And I will apologize for the military inaccuracy. I don't think that my other submissions for that card were also misuses of military terms. I hope not.
Did they all have the Gideon's name in there?
No, I don't think
Did
so.
some of them have Gideon?
No, it's because that's at this point.
Yeah,
it's
at that
Gideon.
point he's Gideon. Yeah.
Oh, it's true. It's clearly Gideon in the art.
What if you called it not Kithian's Phalanx? Do you think they would have accepted that?
I don't know. I do want to go on the record and at this moment, take a moment to congratulate Creative on really accurately using Greek-sounding morphology there for that name. I am Greek. I grew up speaking Greek as a kid. I've forgotten a lot of it, but I still have the sort of grammatical underpinnings and I can read the alphabet.
Right.
I can read. I can read the words. I can read the text. I have no idea what it means. But like Kithion is perfect. Like that is a very Greek sounding name. Good job, guys.
Yeah.
And by the way, I hear a lot of people saying Kythion.
No, it's Kithion.
Yeah, no,
Kithion, And there's even a little more like your tone has a little bit actual saying. We're like
Kithion,
Gideon's Phalanx.
Well, it's clearly supposed to be close to the word Gideon.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's part of the whole thing. Is not Kythion. Sorry.
Sorry, guys.
I get tons of pronunciations wrong, so I'm
me
not
too.
actually chastising people. I'm just like, that is clearly Kithian.
I still say Crufix. I know everyone else says Crufix, but I don't know why that U would be pronounced that'd be a hard
That's
U.
true.
I don't
That's
understand.
actually true.
That reads Crufix to me. I don't care. I'm not gonna like go on a crusade about this, but I'm
you mean
going.
a crusade?
Touche.
No, crusade sounds better. Crufix, X and the U. Yeah. You never know.
Doesn't matter.
I do have a question, and I was actually just listening to LR, so shout out to Marshall and LSV. But Marshall particularly had a complaint about this card name because he's like, oh gosh, they're gonna make us say this on
it's
coverage.
James's also?
Yeah, it's Ghirapur Aether Grid.
Okay, that's yours?
Okay, so I didn't use that word, I don't believe. I believe my submission was Kaladeshi Aether Grid because in development at this point,
it was Kaladesh.
Kaladesh was the name
right.
of Chandra's home plane. And some stuff got moved around.
Yeah, because you see Ghirapur pop up a couple of other times. I think Aether Grid is awesome.
Excuse me. Ghirapur was the name.
Ghirapur.
That was the working title of her.
But
that was the name. For us, Ghirapur was the name of her.
Gotcha.
Her and they made a great change. Kaladesh is a much better sounding word.
But it still says Ghirapur, unfortunately.
Right. Okay. So what they did
So
was
they
they
settled.
they shifted Ghirapur into being the name of the city
Oh, inside
Chandra
Kaladesh.
is from. It's just a place within Kaladesh.
It's not
Gotcha.
the name of the whole plane.
No, it's just a city, I believe. I think I'm right.
Right.
I mean,
No,
it
it says
could be a
the
region.
city of Ghirapur is a living thing, and living things defend themselves.
Marshall, just call it the Aether Grid.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. Everyone will know.
Is that a card? Are people going to play that?
No.
No.
Okay.
In EDH maybe, but yeah, it's an interesting card.
No one's gonna play it.
I don't even remember what
either.
it-
It does
I don't
one
remember what it
damage. How do you? Here's a really interesting one: throwing knife.
Throwing knife. Yeah, I mean, come on. I think my others were slightly more, embellished.
No, that's what I mean. Is that's the type of name I can see a whole list of people never submitting the really obvious, like simple one.
Right. I mean, those are there. I don't feel like less of a writer for having scored so simple of a name.
Oh, absolutely
Not at all.
not,
On that,
yeah.
because my other submissions were likely more flowery and
Right.
had done more work, I should say. But sometimes simple is better, and
Yeah.
we don't make the choice at the end of the day. So it's good to include a simple submission and then a flowery submission, and then maybe like an esoteric, weird, whatever. Like you want to cover your bases so they have a good variety of things to choose
Right.
from.
That
Like
makes a lot of
You don't
sense.
know what vibe they want for the card, and so if you provide 3 options of one vibe and they don't like that vibe, you're not getting the card.
Yeah, so you're trying to diversify your portfolio that you're putting forth. So you have throwing knife, and then you'll have like the dancing knives of Ghirapur or whatever.
Right, exactly. It's like we have two ambitions that are almost at odds with each other while doing this. On the one hand, it's like we want to do the best, most interesting literary work possible, and on the other hand, we want to get paid as much as possible,
Right.
and land as much work on the cards as possible.
Because you're trying to make a living here as well. Yeah.
I mean, no one's making a living off of the creative text team. This pays rent like 2 or 3 times a year, but outside of that, it's not.
Well,
It's just a great, yeah.
you also just
Paid
get to
creative
have
work
Yeah.
is just so often falls into that, like
Right, exactly.
that give and take, that tug of war
Yeah.
within your own self, and having it is what makes you be able to do it well. Because if
Right.
you don't care,
Right.
then you'll never do it well.
Right.
But if you do care, then it sucks sometimes because
Because you're hungry.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you're
and you're
definitely
like
hungry.
they chose the interesting one and they chose the boring one and blah blah blah. And
Ultimately, it's their game.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see your text on it no matter what. So I'd be stoked if I got throwing knife. I'd been like, boom, it's so easy. Look at that slam dunk, suckers.
Throwing knife.
We're not going to go through all of these. We want to move on to the flavor text, but a couple of other cards just to mention that you did name because they will be played in our format. Graveblade Marauder with you. That's going to be a
It's
good
the one
EDH card,
for
I think.
death touch.
Yep, that does damage to a player equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard.
Yeah, when
and
it
also,
connects. Evolutionary Leap.
yeah,
which
the
is
new
great.
Survival of the Fittest.
Evolutionary
Yeah.
Leap.
The
new
I was,
greater good.
I was happy about that. I was surprised that they took that name because it's kind of hard and sciencey and doesn't necessarily participate within the multiverse and magic lore.
But Survival of the Fittest.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
That's a Darwinian
it is very green,
term
though,
right
because-
there.
Right,
Evolutionary
okay.
Leap. So
Yeah, and I
what
guess
you've
green
got-
has a habit of doing that.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Well, and what you've got is actually a direct reference to a Darwinism
right.
term. So that to me is perfect. Like,
Right. I looked at what the card was doing, and this is, as a narrative design to me often boils down to the express. I mean, of course, to everyone, it's the expression of game mechanics in the story, and of course, it should go the other way as well. The mechanics should kind of manifest what the story is talking about.
Right.
That intersection is where narrative designers are doing work, and so for me, reading that ability, it seemed pretty clear that this was about progress. And evolution is not a teleological process. If you've studied bio,
Right.
you know
Right.
that. But
sometimes you go backwards.
sometimes you go backwards, and or sideways, or it just stops. Whatever. But magic is pulpy, and the card art called for sort of like this molting. This molting serpent thing that was changing forms, and
into like a naga.
and it's also I like the word leap there. Because it's sort of idiomatically associated with evolution. Like that's a phrase, and I like the fact that you don't that you're jumping through things. Like there's a sense of distance being covered with each card that you flip.
Yeah, it fits the action of what's actually happening because you may flip 6 cards before you get to the next one.
Right.
And the leap also has this kind of risk to it inherently because you may just end up with like a 1/1 when you sack like a 6/5.
Which
or
is like you
whatever.
said, like evolution actually does work that way. There's a lot of dead ends.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on to the flavor. your very first card on here is kind of controversial.
Yeah, I was all about it.
Yeah.
This has gotten a lot of people talking.
I don't know why. It's fantasy. I mean, come on, guys.
Because people just want to be up in arms about stuff.
Yeah.
So the card, you didn't name this card, but you did the flavor text, right?
I did not name the card, but I did the flavor quote.
So the card is Blessed Spirits.
If you guys have seen the art, it's the two little children
in front of the
window.
stained glass window. Yeah, they're ghost children though.
But they're happy for some reason.
Yeah, they've. In case you were questioning whether they're alive children or not, well, then James wrote some flavor text that says, "Not all heroes die in armor,"
which is great.
Thank you.
That was my favorite part when I saw this card. I saw the card, saw the name, I was like, oh, and then I read the flavor text, and it was just like, oh.
Just in case, so that you don't think they're alive. They're ghost children. So let's just go ahead and get that out there.
They're ghost
man,
babies.
a lot of people love it. A lot of people don't love it.
I love it. I think this is great.
It's not the flavor text specifically, just the card itself.
Right? No, some people thought it was too brutal. It wasn't tasteful. You know, it was depicting dead children. And,
right.
You know, people were like, I saw some Reddit comments. People were like, "Oh my God, who's in control over there? Like, who's running the show in creative? Like, what's wrong with that?" And I'm sitting here on my computer.
Have those guys seen some of Magic's old cards? Like, come on, guys.
We have zombies like ripping people apart. And blood like pouring from their face. And
Demonic Tutor is like one of the very first cards.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
They're not telling you to join the occult.
Yeah. All of black is consistently macabre.
Yeah. And then white gets this beautiful, not all heroes die in armor. Like, these kids are heroes too. And people are like, oh my God, rabble.
Maybe they're just mad because ghost children are always evil in horror movies. And so they're just mad it's white.
Yeah. Also, it's 2/2. These are little kids. They should be, I guess they're 1/1s each.
There's two of them.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the thing with this was like watching that reaction take place was so gratifying as a writer because on the one hand, people loved it. On the other hand, they hated it. But no matter what, they were feeling something.
Yeah,
so that's what it's all about, is making people feel things.
That's ultimately what art is about, right? Is like obtaining a reaction from your audience. It's not, if they ever are just sitting there and there's no reaction, then
you can do it cheaply by shocking them with something.
Exactly.
I mean, or you can like,
that's why really people do that, because they can't figure out how to do it the other way, but at least they can do it in the exploitative way.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, this one, it just looked like a sad card. There was just these dead ghost children floating in front of this thing, and Innistrad.
So you had the full art.
We had the full art. So this card is on Innistrad. And that was weird because Lily visits Innistrad. That's the only person.
But Gideon doesn't.
Yeah,
right?
Gideon doesn't.
And it's white, so you would think.
So you would think that it would be all the other Innistrad cards are black, I think.
Right.
There might be some other violations of this convention, but for the most part, this is sort of conspicuously off color for the other Theros or Innistrad cards in this set. And so, I remember being really tuned in to the flavor of Innistrad and looking at the sort of position humans held on that plane, and it is one of extreme vulnerability and sacrifice and danger. And so, I feel like Thalia's art really kind of encapsulates the spirit of humanity.
They're just under siege.
They're just under siege. It's just like,
it's a lot like that book we gave away, The Warded Man.
It's just a terrible place to be a human at that time. And so, I really wanted to get in touch with that feeling of being surrounded and of losing the things that matter most, the sort of the sense of hopelessness, and yet within that, the promise of fighting through, of like, Avacyn's going to come back, our hero will be restored and we'll be fine. So I really wanted to look at them as being precious and somehow make that come across.
Yeah, I love the card. I think you did a great job with it. So congrats on that one. Another one you did is Displacement Wave. It's a sorcery for X blue. You can return all non-land permanents when convert mana cost X or less to their owner's hands. And the flavor text is great here. The sea respects no boundaries, least of all the coast.
When I got my email telling me which things I had gotten accepted, that was the one I was the most excited to see, because it felt like the best sentence. It was the best writing, I thought, out of all of the other ones. And creative does a lot of editing on your submissions. A lot of times you'll get paid for something that you began really, but that they kind of ran with.
Yeah.
And I don't always enjoy those amendments. No writer does. Like, sometimes you get edited well. Most of the time, we're less than stoked to see edits hit our stuff. And this was one that I was surprised got through without any touching, and it was I was just happy to see it.
Very cool.
Very
It fits very well too because it's just it's wave that just doesn't care. It's like 'cause look, we're paying a lot for this X to bounce a lot of stuff to their hand. So
Yeah.
One I'm really excited about is Willbreaker.
oh yeah,
This is the guy. He's 3 and 2 blue for a 2/3. Whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes the target of a spell or ability you control, gain control of that creature for as long as you control Willbreaker. So it just steals stuff. And the flavor text is "Master your mind, or I shall master it for you."
and this is the Willbreaker herself saying it,
Right.
which is great.
Right. I think I was coming off of a bunch of Alhamaret writing
Mhm.
when I wrote that. It was very much
You're in the mind
I was
mage zone.
Yeah, I was in that blue cocky telepath vibe. The two of them just talk trash to each other. Jace and Alhamaret throughout in the not even so much on the cards that actually saw print, but the submission pools for the cards featuring those two characters were so sassy. They were
Interesting.
They were just throwing shade at each other back and forth.
Yeah.
Wild.
And Willbreaker does have that sort of cockiness to her, though. The pose is very intimidating. She's holding a literal brain in between her hands. So, yeah, I like that a lot. I think it fits really well. Guardian Automaton. This is a long one. So, do you know that you have this much space on these ones?
Yes, there's actually a digital render of the card that updates in real time as you compose text. You see your text appearing on the card, which is really key because sometimes a single character will push the word over the edge of the space.
It's like Twitter.
It's just like Twitter.
But except for that, you actually use commas and like capitalization and correct grammar.
actual grammar, yeah.
Some people on Twitter do that too. I mean, that's a voicing thing. Like,
True.
yeah.
But Guardian Automaton says the wealthy in the city of Ghirapur outfit their lives with grand machines, entrusting even their children to filigree and gears. So that's actually pretty complicated. I love that it has a lot of story, and it fits because there's this little kid walking alongside this like weird guardian thing like that. It looks like he's holding a balloon, but I'm sure it's just a big staff.
It's those basic commons that don't do anything and have all the space in the world for writing that contain the best world building moments.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. How do you determine? Because if you look at Willbreaker and then you look at Guardian Automaton, it's totally different perspective that you're writing from, right? One is like literally a quote from the character on that card, and the other is just like a sort of little snippet of what life is like in this particular town, city, plane, whatever.
You'd be surprised how easy it is to determine when which is appropriate. On Willbreaker, the direction for that card did not include. I don't remember it including any real specific connections. I think sometimes it actually, like when it says there's a location field, and sometimes they won't specify. They'll be like, oh, this is a generic blue mage. This is a red mage. And in those moments, especially when there's a single line, you have line for bravado, and that's it. You just have like a cocky little saying that you would drop and move on.
Just like a mic drop moment kind of thing.
Exactly. But when you have when the card is set on Kaladesh, and it is a picture of a child with a very specific robotic accompaniment, and they're moving through a market space, like it's very obviously a scene that creative has set forward and set up to deliver world information,
right.
So
that's really interesting.
the text teams, everyone's pretty sensitive to that. We're all kind of on board with it, and I think most creative people who were in that position would feel pretty clear about which is necessary.
Right. Now there's another card, Pricklebore, and it also has a lot of space on the bottom, but this one is a quote of someone saying something. Now, when you make up a quote for someone, do you have specifically a character that has already existed in mind? Like, has Marintha's a Crone Captain popped up in other flavor texts in the past?
Nope, and I actually don't even remember if that's the name I submitted. They may have edited it if they wanted to, but you just sort of you make up names constantly. Constantly making up fantasy characters. And you just make up the phonemes. You just cram stuff together. That sounds good. It sounds appropriate to where that's from.
Right.
We should read the quote on Pricklebore. It's canyons in the
Boboros?
I always said Faberos, but that didn't probably
Faberos.
Canyons in the Faberos Badlands are essentially and then it's attributed to Marinthus, a Crone Captain.
Yeah, I don't remember making up that name. I don't think I would have, because it sounds too much like Miletus, the city.
I would Daxos' fame.
Right. I'm actually not even a big fan of this quote. I don't think this is one of my better submissions.
But sometimes they just
I guess they disagree. They appreciate it. It serves, it accomplishes some end for them. That's that's fine with me.
Sometimes you close your eyes, you throw the dart, and it hits the bullseye, man.
Yeah.
It's there. So I don't remember making up that name. I might have, they might have, but yes, we make up names all the time, constantly making up names.
Now, the last card that you did flavor for that we'll talk about today is Grasp of the Hieromancer. And this is an enchantment that whenever the creature enchanted attacks, you get to tap a creature the target defending player controls. Now, it's specifically from the Warden Hixus to Kithion. There is power in Abandon, but far more in Control. Do you think, because it has Kithion on the art, do you think that gives you a little more, like, I don't know, buying power to get the quote? Because it's a story moment. It's about, you know, a fight that occurs in the story where the Warden Hixus is still very much his mentor.
I could be wrong, but I believe I wrote that quote for a different card.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think, is it called Suppression Bonds? I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that
There's
in this
one.
set?
He's essentially doing the exact same thing in the art for Grasp of the Hieromancer. He is casting Suppression Bonds on someone.
Right. Okay. So I'm pretty sure I wrote this quote for Suppression Bonds, and they flopped it over.
Wow, very interesting. Actually, it's funny because the Suppression Bonds quote is, a master of hieromancy can see the advantage in any scenario, and the other card is Grasp of the Hieromancer. So
Right.
a lot of wordplay there, flipping
Someone
around.
pointed out that there was a little bit of an incongruency with Grasp of the Hieromancer because it's more of an aggro card. But
Right. It says control.
it has the word control in it. You know?
Right.
And it's I think the quote worked better on the previous one where I wrote it.
Right.
But I like what they did. They flopped it around.
Yeah, that's cool. So, I mean, it's great to see that, you know, it's a never-evolving process. You submit something, a name can get changed, some words can get edited, but you still get attributed for it if they choose yours as a starting off point.
I mean, in the contract for them, it's like, you know, when you hit submit, it's their property now. They can do whatever they want.
Right. Of course.
Well, let's talk about, you know, last time we had you on, we got a lot of questions. I think a lot of people are interested in getting into like creative fields.
Right.
For work or just getting involved in those things. I mean, everyone listening to this obviously plays Magic, so they obviously like this sort of creative realm. And this is fun for Jimmy and I because our day jobs are actually in the same field.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of questions before about like, how do people sort of get started? You know, how do they get their chances getting into, you know, this kind of field? Do you have any advice for people, you know, looking to get into creative field?
Yeah, it's the same advice I give anytime people ask me this question, and that's just do it and be seen doing it. Start doing it now. If you want to be a game designer, design games.
Right.
Like, even if you don't have the assets to have, you know, beautiful card art, or, you know, you don't have the money to print it and manufacture it, but like make a prototype, you know, print it on stock at Kinko's. And, you know, if you like it, maybe you don't do a Kickstarter, like get yourself out there, be visible, and sort of build yourself up to have visible value so that when a prospective employer, in this case, a game developer, is interested, who, you know, is looking to hire a narrative designer or a level designer or an environment artist, that you have done enough of it already where they're looking at you as someone who can provide value to them. They don't want to
Gotcha.
look at you as a charity project that they're going to be like, oh, this kid will be a good writer someday. Someone just needs to give him a chance. Like, no, they want good writing right now. And if they're going to pay for it, they want someone who is already getting paid for it. They want a professional.
Right.
So there's a kind of a fake it till you make it thing going on, but you have to go out and do the thing that you want someone to pay you for it before you can get someone to pay you for it. You have to like have that value already. So in the writing field, it's, you know, be a writer, go write. And then like having done that, having edited, having arrived at something polished and showable, publish, get it published, get it out there, start branding yourself as a writer. The other big part of this is visibility. We live in an age where with social media and our connectivity is such that we can be very easily seen. And if you,
Right, like what you're saying, Twitter is how you got in with those Gathering Magic guys originally.
yeah, I mean, like I was publishing on the same site as them, but the conversations we were having were on Twitter or on GChat or something, you know, and it's just like, just talk to people, like get out there and, you know, be gregarious and be visible and brand yourself in a consistent positive way. I think one of the things branding is, you know, kind of a dirty word. I think it's kind of commercial and gross, but you want to be
It's intimidating too. People don't really know what it means or they don't understand the full meaning of it.
Right. I mean, I guess in this sense, it's just like put forth an image that is consistent and honest.
Do not lie, guys.
Yeah.
Well, fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it, but
lie.
like, you know, if you want your brand, if you want to do really literary work, like really highbrow, fancy work, you know, make sure that's visible in the names you choose for yourself and the art you put in. Like, have all of the pieces, all of like the dynamics, all the visual, audio, textual, have all of the pieces be in concert and working together, you like servicing your brand, each of them contributing to it, so that when you apply to a game developer and they look at your website, it's all like your brand is in every aspect of it.
Right.
I like what you said first off, which is just do the thing.
Yeah, do the thing.
And you know, if you look around and you hear stories or whatever, there's just not many people that are great at something in the creative field that just never got discovered. It just doesn't really happen, you know? And so the people that are out there and they're doing stuff and it's great stuff, the rest will work itself out.
Yeah.
Water will find its level, as we like to say. And so that's the first thing I would say to anybody in any creative field.
Yeah.
Is that do the thing, do it good.
Yeah.
Don't worry so much about those other steps, the branding, the connections, all the rest of that stuff that feels like really important, and it is, but do the thing. Do it good.
Yeah.
I guarantee all the rest of that stuff will work itself out if you're great at what you're doing.
And also, every person that's done something great started out by doing something that was just absolutely crappy.
Yeah.
And people who are doing great things every now and then will do something crappy. Like
all the time. Look at actors. This happens so consistently with actors
constantly
because there's
doing
so
crappy
much.
things,
Constantly doing crappy things. And occasionally one great thing, and you just need to just keep at it. You know, keep consistent.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the most glittering brand out there, if someone looks closely and there's no substance, if you haven't done the thing, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, great advice. We could have a whole podcast just on how to break into entertainment. But let's talk about some giveaway winners instead. Woo! And James, you can cheer on any of these people if you agree with their...
We're giving away books. A writer should like that.
So exciting.
Absolutely. So the question was, what card from Magic Origins are you most excited about and which of your decks will it go into? So we'll just read them off one at a time. The first winner over email, Sam Blood.
What a sweet name.
What a sweet...
Is that your real name, Sam? Is that your stage name?
It has to be something.
Your
it's
branded name?
Anyway, he said, Tragic Arrogance. It won me a pre-release and is going straight in my Aloro deck. And we know that Aloro is the most popular commander by far.
Is he really?
Yeah.
And was the commander that was easily the most referenced of all our submissions. I'll talk about that a little later. Winner number 2, again, remember, everybody's winning a copy of Red Rising on paperback, I believe.
From Del Rey Spectra.
So it's Austin Whetstone at the Big Robot.
Another great
on
name.
Twitter.
I know, right?
These are all superhero names or
does it have an
supervillain
H?
names.
Is it like
Yes,
a Whetstone?
it is
Oh,
straight
got
up
it.
H.
Oh,
Yeah.
killing it, Austin.
Austin says, really looking forward to Mama and Papa Nalar. That's Pia and Kieran Nalar. I think they'll take over for Slowbad for a while.
Very nice, very nice. After that, we have Laura Rodamich, or Road Mike. It kind of looks like
Rodamich.
Rodamich at Argoria on Twitter. My Nath deck needs Gnarl Root Trapper. Elves with Death Touch equals yes.
Elves with Dead Touch equal yes. That's good.
I like it.
The next one is on Twitter at njudy121. Says, I'm excited for Pyromancer's Goggles.
Me too.
I'll be throwing it in my Riku of Two Reflections deck.
Where it belongs.
Yeah, definitely. After that, we have Boris Fishman. Another great name. Over email, Pyromancer Goggles for Melik. I can't wait to use the goggles to copy a red ritual or an epic experiment or something similar. Epic experiment would be pretty sweet.
Sounds like a little bit of storm going on there, maybe.
Yeah.
Next one is Drew Bradshaw, also over email. My top pick from Origins is Mana Gorger Hydra, and it's going in every green deck. Every single one.
Yeah, it's
we didn't talk about this card.
Yeah, that's right. We didn't mention it in
Which
Origins
is probably
review.
our mistake because it just destroyed me at the pre-release.
Oh, yeah.
I went 4-1, but the one match that I lost, this guy got Mana Gorger out, and it just grew to like a 12-12 trample, and
You also tried to fight card it, not realizing your fight card
Yeah.
gave it the extra bit of toughness that your fight
Bummer.
card wouldn't work. Yeah, I saw it happen. I was like, no, Josh, no.
What are you doing?
Don't do
Yeah,
it.
well, it was a misplay, but that card is a house. And with 4 players casting spells or 5, I could see it being like pretty broken.
Yeah. Our next winner is at JACII, Jassy, Jackai, I don't know. Top pick of Origins for my EDH deck, drumroll. Kothoped, Soul Hoarder in Marchesa. K-Fed, yeah. And second pick, Sphinx's Tutelage in Crufix. Very good. Very
You're
good.
pronouncing it Crufix now?
Yeah, I mean, he plays it.
I've corrupted him.
He
Yeah.
just corrupted
His crusade to make me say
James,
Crufix has worked.
You're very persuasive.
Yeah. I'm also going to say Tutelage, Sphinx's Tutelage in Crufix.
I can't believe you gave me this next name
Yeah.
to read. Chris
Zvirzicki?
Zvirzicki. I like that.
Yeah.
It's
Beautiful.
at CZ4200 on Twitter. That's a lot easier to say. I'm excited for putting the new Lily in Alesha to make the Sisterhood of the Traveling Recursion.
They would be pretty sweet sisters.
People are clever. They write funny things.
Yeah, seriously. The next one is from Pro Tour competitor Sam Black. Just kidding. His name is also Samuel Black at Retro Frog. Willbreaker plus Goblin Bombardment. Ooh,
not bad.
straight into Marchesa. Let me just destroy everything you own.
That's your
I
card,
love it.
James. Willbreaker.
Yeah.
It is.
And our 10th and final winner of the book, Red Rising, is Philip. Oh, he's got a cool Twitter name. It's at Filthy Casual.
Oh, very nice.
New Liliana as commander in my mono black zombie deck.
Vorthos, very on top.
Like it.
I like it a lot.
Yeah,
so
that's
make
good.
sure you guys, if you heard your name, email us your address at commandcast@rocketjump.com so we can send you out your prizes.
I also wanted to say, because as I was compiling all the submissions, there were some interesting things. One, Alora was easily the most mentioned commander. Alhammaret's Archive was easily, I would say, times 10 any other card.
That card is awesome.
Yeah.
It's so cool. I was so sad I didn't get any of the names for it. Or didn't get
Do you
this
remember
name.
any of the names you submitted for it?
I think I had like Orb of like Alhammaret's Orb and like Eye of Alhammaret and stuff like that. I was much more on like a mystical glass level than like a sort of library archive kind of thing. But I like what archive does because it's still a glass orb. So now we know.
And it helps you with card draw, which archives we know you generally do.
Right.
Yeah,
It just
yeah.
just like imagining that a sphere of glass functioning in a sort of like in a library.
I don't know what it has to do with life gain, but okay.
Yeah, I don't know either, but it's nice.
The interesting thing, though, because I think that was kind of a gimme, was that the second most talked about card was Sword of the Animist.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ant, the guy I mentioned earlier, Tresor. I'm sorry, Ant. He named that.
Very
nice.
cool.
Pretty stoked on that.
That's
Yeah.
a good one. Well, people are very excited about that card. I was surprised how often it was mentioned.
Yep.
I think it's just
colorless ramp.
Colorless ramp, and it goes in every deck.
It's any land, right? It's not just basics.
Is it any land?
That'd be really good.
For a basic land card.
It's a basic land. Okay, okay. It's still great.
I was going to say, man, it's broken otherwise.
Still great.
Yeah, just ramp for any color deck.
It's also cheap to put out and equip.
Beautiful art. It's the art on the game day playmat.
I mean, if you're in
very
mono
nice.
white or mono red, like that's just such a good tool that you did not have before. So
Yeah,
I can see.
absolutely.
Okay, so thanks again, Del Rey Spectra, for the book contest. Once again, if you heard your name called, email us your address or we can't send the prizes.
Mancast at rocketjump.com. All right. And you guys can also follow Del Rey Spectra at Twitter at Del Rey Spectra.
Worth noting, I think I remember the equip cost having a green symbol in it.
Oh,
In
sort of the
development,
MS
I think
originally?
they pulled that. I think they changed it.
Wow. Well, it makes sense because it is a green card, which
It'd
is
be
really interesting.
way worse if it had a colored equip cost.
Yeah, especially
It
'cause
would
it's-
not have been, people would not have been as excited.
They
that
would
may have
not
been the
be
first
here, yeah.
time it has a. Oh, no. I guess cranial plating also kind of has a colored equip cost. But just a straight colored one, I don't think has.
There's some in Darksteel, isn't there? Or
Oh, that would
in
make
I
sense.
think
old
there's a
Mirrodin
few.
set?
There's a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few.
Well, it's not like green needs this ability anymore anyway. So,
I'm glad they did what they did.
yeah, me too. It's an
don't
awesome
have a
card.
choice.
Yeah.
All right, time to move on to the end step where we talk about something cool outside of the world of Magic.
Yeah, James, how is your game Roots coming?
Yeah, Roots went live on Amazon about I think a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and
Want to give everyone a quick breakdown what the game is?
yeah, absolutely. It actually kind of relates to that game you mentioned before with like making up the words. What was it? Flibbit or something?
Yeah, Fibbage.
Fibbage. Right. So for the listeners, I just put out a board game, my very first one. It's called Roots, a game of inventing words, and it's a casual, narrative-driven, and actually educational tabletop game. It's card-based, and basically what you do is you take prefixes, which are on their own deck of cards, and each card will have a prefix, like Astro or whatever, or Luna, something, and the meaning is printed beneath it, and then you would pair that with another with a suffix card, which is in a different color, a different deck. Let's say it would have like Ocracy. And this is the example I always give. I'm sure like if anyone's heard me before, I always do this. And so you combine various prefixes and suffix cards together to make totally new words, and you match them to a subject card, which is always an adjective. So kind of like apples to apples, where like the subject card is out and then everyone submits to match that subject. In this, you're playing. There's like a Scrabble like board, or kind of a arrangement of trees on the table, and you will add either a prefix or a suffix card to the edge of those trees to create new words to match the subject card in play. So let's say the subject card is tyrannical, right? And so, Astro is hanging off the bottom of a tree on the table, and you have Ocracy in your hand. Your submission for that round, you could add Ocracy to make Astrocracy or Star Government, and you would then explain to the group the Astrocracy is tyrannical because it suppresses the more primitive, undeveloped planets in this system, and it's blah, 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 blah. You say whatever you want, and then at the end of the round, everyone votes on the most successful word, the best word of that round. You cannot vote for your own.
This game sounds exactly exactly what we've been talking about up till now. It's the most up your alley thing I could even think of.
I mean, like someone told me in grad school, they're like, write the book you want to read. And I think that applies to any art form. It's like, make the art you want to consume. Right. And so as a gamer, as a game designer, I set out to make the game that I wanted to play that would maximally, support and showcase my strengths as a player. And I'm a total Johnny through and through in games. And, I often, growing up, playing games with my family, I would make uncompetitive decisions that were cool. I would like throw games and like pursue some strategy that was not the most competitive visibly, but was just doing interesting things with the mechanics. And so I was always very interested in what narrative was being enacted and blah, blah, blah. And so this is a game that really, really highlights your verbal ability to defend and explain your choices. And so you play Astrocracy, that might not necessarily, its connection to tyrannical might not be self-evident, but you as a player, the debate, the explanation, the rhetorical part of it is where the game really shines. And so it's up to you as a player to explain why the Astrocracy is tyrannical, why your new word matches that subject. And it's up to your opponents to laugh at you, to refute it, because you're all going to vote at the end of the thing. And so you have to influence the table. At any time you can undermine somebody else's ability. So it's actually somebody else's arguments. It's actually very rules light.
That's cool.
All right, cool. Go on Amazon.com and look up Roots and check it out. Time for the cleanup step.
That's right.
Let's make sure that you listen to our sister podcast, The Masters of Modern. Alex and Ben talk about all things modern and competitive Magic. You can find them on Twitter at the MMCast.
And our editor for the show is Eli Cuevas, and many special thanks to Jeffrey Palmer for the living card animations. You can find them on Twitter at livingcardsmtg. You guys should watch the video for this week because we'll show all the cards that James got to write the flavor text and or name. So very exciting.
And you can also find James on Twitter at James Pianka. Do you have any other worldwide internet URLs you want to throw out there?
I'm at the same handle. Will take you to my Instagram, which serves an entirely different purpose. I'll let you guys find that out on your own. The Twitter, it's Pianka, excuse me.
And you can find all those links in the show notes, of course, as usual.
Yeah, right.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter at JFWong and at Josh Lee Kwai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.